Hey guys, Bunny here, and welcome to devlog day 4. So, I got a little bit stressed that we didn't do anything last episode. Like, really, we did a fair bit. We made stuff kind of half work. We got the groundwork set up for it, but it didn't feel like enough to me. So, after tinkering for a very small amount of time, mind you, I figured out what went wrong with the last episode. So, our issue was, it was realizing that there was, so Goblin, it's figuring out if there's a collider in the area, right? Our first Goblin has 2 colliders, our next Goblin has 1 collider, and every time it checks for a new collider, it automatically added to the list instead of keeping the list at a certain number. So it would go 3, then it would go 6, then it would go 9, that kind of thing. So what I did was, I can't remember how much any of this was said, so I'll just go through the entire code. If I've repeated it before, I'll either cut it or I'll just keep it in. You guys can just have to deal with me repeating myself. So the first loop is a little while loop. So every time something enters or exits the frame, it'll send a loop and it'll go friend colliders.length, obviously the length of the overlap sphere. So everything in that's how many things are contained in this sphere. So every time that length goes up with this while loop, so we're checking each sphere. Then we check if this specific number is an enemy, and if it's an enemy, we're like, cool, that's what we want. If it's not an enemy, ignore it. Then what happens is we use the next list. We want to store them in a separate list away from the overlap sphere, so it can be counted as that. So if the goblin in the radius count is greater than 1, so basically if there's something in the list, that's when we want to look at something, otherwise just add it. So if it's greater than 1, then we make a new variable. We start off a variable, which is the bool testpos equals false. Now I've used the testpos equals false as a way to basically go, if the test for this specific while loop is true at any point during our loop, that's it, that doesn't get added. It does the exact same thing that this does, but it does it in the goblin radius. And basically it checks if this friend collider is actually in the list already. So basically that's good for double ups of colliders, and it's good for if something enters and exits it too fast, it's probably going to handle that as well. So basically if it's in there, testpos equals true, and then it's ignored. Otherwise, if that's not the case, it'll add it. Z equals goblin.radius.count. So if it's gone through the entire list and it's not positive, add it. Otherwise, sorry, that else is for something else. The else is for the if loop. So that basically, if the length is not over 1, you just add it. And then obviously the end of the while loop increases the I. Hopefully that was explainable. So basically, this to-do list has been done, even though you guys didn't actually see me doing it. I don't think I looked anything up to actually finish that loop. That was just like big brain stuff. I've done stuff like it before. I just didn't realize I had to do it for the sphere. And then I realized I had multiple colliders on the first goblin, and that was going to be an issue. So obviously we have these 2 other to-do things, which is figure out if another goblin is hit by a light and kill player if player enters the radius. So figuring out if another goblin is hit by a light, I think, are going to be a very easy task. So what happens is, at the moment, we have on trigger, this void fear. You guys remember void fear? That was one of our first things we had to handle. And now what happens is when a player shoots a light at an unsuspecting goblin, it tells the goblin that it's being looked at, and the goblin will run. What I'm going to do is, basically, this is going to be a 2-pronged send message. So we're sending a message from the player to the object, which is our goblin. And then I want my goblin to send more messages to all of our goblins in radius. So put it in Z, in Y equals 0, while Y is less than goblin, not lowercase, sorry, goblin in radius dot count. Okay, if it's less than the goblin radius dot count, goblin in radius y dot, it's a game object, right? Am I storing game objects, or am I storing add friend color. Yeah, so I'm storing the game object, which means that I just have to do send message like that. Our light behavior. How does send message work again? Okay, so it's the function and then it's the this. Oh, well, I didn't even think about that, but this works just as well, right? Oh wait, that'll get us caught in a loop though, because it'll just keep sending it to the same goblin. Okay. Or friend colliders I dot name equals this dot name. Invalid term. Oh, I don't know why I put equals. I'm a freaking dumbass. That should be all good. No overload for methods. Yes. Okay. Goblin.y.send message, and then I'll put fear, and then I'll put true. Right? I plus. And I want to cut that off for a little bit. Yep. Now our goblin has one element in it. It's goblin. Cool. Goblin 1 hasn't been. Oh, so goblin, yeah, goblin 1's stupid now. What I want to do is duplicate it again. Let's try it now. Okay, now goblin 1 has. Oh, it still has, interesting. But its name is goblin 1. So why? I'm very confused. Okay. Not sure why it's doing that. There is an error. That's the error. Yep. Okay. So you're all chilling, coming towards me. Now if I hit one ear, ooh, uh-oh. So let's go through, say goblin 1 is going through this list, right? So this while loop's fine. If the tag equals enemy, yes. If the friend collider's name equals this name, yes. Actually, it will equal that anyway, so this doesn't matter. So if the goblin radius count is greater than or equal to 1, so if the list is filled, do this. Nope. Else, let's do. Okay. Else, if, and then chuck another else. Right? If that equals that, right? Oops. Greater than 1, and that. Else, you want to do the goblin add, but in the middle of that, you want to do this, right? So if it's not full and they equal, debug.log caught. And then we can click off this. Now, will it catch finally the issues, right? What's wrong now? Invalid term bracket. What do you mean invalid term bracket? Debug.log caught. Ah. Done. It was caught twice. But the goblin, why were you still added? What? Goblin should have, now, see, now it's getting both of them. If goblin in radius dot count is greater than 1, so that'll be no. Actually, no, because it'll check twice, right? So we need to do it twice. We need to do on this else if, and then we need to do it on thing again. So we need to put these back. But I think this is gonna fix it, and we've only got it written twice. Still twice is too many. I'm doing something wrong. There should be an easy way to do this. Been caught twice. There's one goblin here. Okay, I see it. Finally freaking fixed it. But it's freezing again. What's happening to my beautiful for loops? The while loop shouldn't be broken, because it's like, as I do that, freezes. So it's still an issue of, you know what it is? I've made a big mistake. I get it now. I get what I'm doing wrong. The issue is, because they're both trying to figure it out, if they get a light, they're going to hit the light back and they're going to keep bouncing it back off each other. I'm a dunce. I mean, that was an issue, but I completely forgot that I was doing it. The issue is that our fear has only one thing, right? So if I put fear true, right? How do I Okay, this is the first time I'm looking up an API for this one. I need to look up send message and figure out if there's a way to send multiple values, right? Yeah, fuck it. Okay, so our goblin handler is now going to have a bool if x 0. X is true constantly, right? X 0 is true. Check this, and then if x 1, then we do this, because this is all that matters. If it's fine, it's fine, you know. So if the first in the array is true, player away equals false, and that's all you need to do. However, if the second part of the array is also true, what's an easy way to do this to where I'm not like checking kind of variables though? I have the array, it's probably going to be a slightly more issues with coding, right? Okay, you know what? True, false. Do you have to like make a list with that? I mean, I think there's something wrong with this. So if x, I don't think it matters. If x freaking 2 or x1 0, and then so basically we get rid of that, put that there. Can apply indexing with square. That's not an index, that is now a bool list. Hang on, I forgot that. Okay, this will send false. This will send true false, right? Okay, so what happens is this will send a true true, right? Which will then tell it that, okay, you've gotten hit by a light. This is the first light that is going to be hit. And then this one is going to say, okay, you're getting hit where I'm getting hit by a light, you're not. So don't tell anyone else, basically. Let's hope she works. Missing. Okay. Missing a method exception. Attempted to access a missing member. I'm going to have to look up that array thing from earlier, because they seem to be able to tell me more about how the arrays work. Okay, so I think I have to do it like this. So, what, bool income parameters 1, and then parameters, and it's like 0 equals true, income parameters 1 equals true, then income parameters. Okay, so that seems to be how I'm going to do that parameter thing. I'll do the same thing here, but change this to income parameters, and this will now equal false. Okay, does it have index was outside the bounds of the array? Oh, you know what? I might have confused what's happening. This might be 2 because there's like it's a length of 2. Index without a range must be non-negative and less than the size of the collection. Is it because I put equals? Am I a fucking fool? Again. Okay, it's working. I cannot stress this enough. People say it all the time. Like if you subscribe to any game developing blogs and stuff, you'll hear it all the time. Like 90% of programming is fixing bugs. Like I was just there like, okay, what's going wrong here? So many things could be going wrong. What could be going wrong here? And do you know what the issue was? That I had less than equals instead of less than. The only thing wrong there was that I had that. Otherwise, everything was going to work perfectly. So now we've got it. So the goblins run away from each other, like run away from the light if they're near each other. And if my theory is correct, I've made it compatible with each other. So let's say Goblin X goes over here. Let's say Goblin 3 goes over here. Let's say Goblin 2 is back here. A lot of them. And then if I just hit one, they all fly away. I want to like spread them out a little bit more, just so it's like a little bit more visible how this actually works. Yep. You. Not hitting anyone. You. Not hitting anyone. You. Hitting someone. So now if they're spawned and are grouped in together, they will combine. If you can... I'm hoping that it means that if you're careful enough, you can actually herd them, right? I guess to finish this off, I do want to mention I'm inspired by games that I don't actually play very often, I'll be honest. Half-Life, I've never played Half-Life. I've played like the first one for like a tiny bit, but I never finished it. But the concept of being able to use physics objects to accomplish goals is really cool to me. Zelda Breath of the Wild, a lot of people did like finished puzzles with really obscure means because the puzzles weren't designed with a specific way to solve them in mind. They're like, here is a puzzle. This is what you need to complete the puzzle. And they're all properties assigned to different objects all throughout the game. I think there was a specific map. It was like a electricity thing. You needed to connect these two electrical things, and there was a definite easy way to do that. But what someone did was, swords have conductive abilities in the game. They conduct lightning bolts in the game. And so what they did was they just lined up all of these shitty ass swords along the map so that it would conduct electricity. And I like that in games. I like when they have the freedom of being able to do that. There was a YouTube series I watched back in the day. I'm sure a lot of you guys remember it. If you don't remember it, I actually don't know if they're still active, but it was a Mythbusters series. It was an online video game Mythbusters series, and what they did was they busted myths about specific games. So what they did was, I think there was the one that comes to mind immediately is there was a Halo sticky grenade compilation, basically. And what they did was they mythbusted that, like, they were like, okay, these grenades are sticky grenades. They're projectiles. They actually hit the ground. They bounce off it. Can sticky grenades stick to each other? Can sticky grenades do, like, what can you do with that? And then what can you do to add them to the game? And so they like tested, like, do grenades stick to plasma grenades? Do stick grenades stick to grenades? And like sometimes it didn't, sometimes it did, based on like just the settings in the game. And like they figured out, you know, how you could fix that. The damage model for Call of Duty Modern Warfare, for instance, I love that you can use a Predator missile and use that to destroy a kill streak instead of a person, because that counts. It's damage. It's just straight up damage. It doesn't matter where it comes from. And old school games didn't do that. They made it like you were forced into a certain attribute because they couldn't go be on your merry way with all of your statistics and do what the statistics tell you to do. They had to go like, okay, I need this to do one thing. I need this to walk from line to line. And so when I'm programming these characters, I want it to be like, so I'm not great at programming. I don't know enough about programming to be able to kind of do this, but I want some form of freeform object attributes to help the game. For instance, these goblins, right? I really want it to be so like, I want every light source at some point, I want every light source to be considered a light source. And so the goblins, if you look at the goblins, they will move, but like maybe there's some freaky ass TV screen in the back of the building. They won't go to that, so they'll be stuck between the light and the TV building. Or like maybe an enemy gives off light. The goblins are now afraid of that enemy and will run away from that enemy if it's spawned in the same place. And that creates a kind of environment, I guess. It creates this cool environment where things just interact with each other, and they interact in ways that I won't predict is my goal. Like, I want someone to, you know, if this game gets off the ground, if someone plays it, if people play it, if YouTubers play it, I would love to see a video in the future and people are just like showing something that I did not expect to happen. Not a bug, but just enemies interacting in ways that I did not expect to happen because I like maybe just coded a ton of enemies and then kind of didn't think about how they would combine because of the statistics that I've given them. Or the freaking attributes, I guess, the parameters that have been given to them. These goblins, I think, kind of help with that. They definitely give me some kind of air of they're going to interact with each other. These guys are like running away. They're running away together. I think I need to lower the overlap sphere to maybe 2.5. Actually, you know the issue. It's not that. That's not the issue. 5. What I completely forgot. Void on trigger exit. I'll have a while loop. I'll have a int I equals 0, and then I'll make that say for I is less than goblin in radius dot count. That's a comma dot count. While I is that if all dot tag equals enemy, then do these. Put a little thing there, and I'll put a little thing here. I've got to put this in because if I forget, I'm gonna hate myself. Okay, and then all I need to do now is be a little bit scared because I just realized that I don't know. Is it remove? It is dot remove. Cool. If goblin in radius I dot name equals whole dot game object dot name goblin in radius I dot remove. A lot more of these than I thought there was. What did I do wrong here? I don't need caught anymore because it's actually catching it. Okay, I didn't know this was how it worked. So it'd be this. Nothing changed. Oh. Okay. Now, you're not connected, you're not connected, you're connected, you're not, okay. So the issue there wasn't that the radius was too big, it was that they weren't leaving the radius when they left the radius. So now when they exit the radius, it obviously doesn't need to do another overlap sphere because if they exit the radius, they are exiting the radius. So if an enemy exits the radius, it just goes, okay, this enemy's gone. Easy. The issue is figuring out if, firstly, initializing all the enemies in the radius, I guess. Should the overlap sphere be done to start with? No, because it needs to be on trigger enter. No, because if I do it to start with, then it'll be... Maybe you guys can tell me in the comments. I'll have a look around and see what I can do in the next video. Maybe I'm not sure because if I do the overlap sphere at the very beginning, then enter and exit doesn't need to be even done via overlap sphere. It would just be on trigger enter, right? The overlap sphere is just for figuring out everything in the thing at once. I don't know. I have like a list, and the issue with the overlap sphere is the reason that I had the overlap sphere was because it would just give me a comprehensive list, right? If I have a list that changes and updates on trigger enter, I feel like the trigger is probably the better option because if it enters, it adds itself to the list. If it exits itself from the list. Then I don't need to check for an overlap sphere every time. And in fact, do I need an overlap sphere at all? That would save me coding. I thought the overlap sphere was going to be good for me because people were like, that's the best way to do it. But now that I'm looking at it, we might be better off avoiding the overlap sphere and instead just every time an enemy enters, checking if it's on the list. Unless the overlap sphere is for some reason better, but I'm still using the trigger anyway, so it's probably not going to be any better than what we're currently doing. It'll always use more data than if I was just using a trigger because it's just adding another function. Programming is tough. Okay, it is currently 1:30 in the morning. Thank you guys for watching day 4. Yes, this is day 4.5 because I started recording at about 12. So I'll see you guys in the next one. 20 out.